It's me. That's how. Okay, it's 9:31. Welcome everyone to the December 17th. Are we ready, Paula? Are you recording? Okay. Welcome everyone to this December 17th, 2015 Downtown Design Review Committee meeting. First order of business is to silence your phones. And roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner. Charles Ainsworth.
Present.
Corey Bates. Connie Scothorn. Richard Tannenbaum. And you have a quorum.
Great. Hoping everyone has had a chance to review the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Tannenbaum, Ainsworth, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We have one case withdrawn. We have one continuance request. We have 3 items on the consent docket. Do we have a motion on the consent docket?
You'll need to take action on that.
Oh, okay. So on the continuance request, do I have a motion to allow these people to continue?
Did they want to go to January? Did they say?
Okay, should we?
Do you want to continue it to January or February? Okay. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion.
Move to continue to February. Second.
Tannenbaum, Ainsworth, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we have 3 items on the consent docket. Does anyone have any issues with any of the items on the consent docket? Are there any people that would like to speak to the items on the consent docket? In that case,
Madam Chairman, I move to approve all 3. Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second from Tannenbaum and Ainsworth to approve the consent docket. Yeah, we're going to do another Tannenbaum roll here. All in favor? Any opposed? The consent docket is approved. Cases for individual consideration. I will announce your case if the applicant will come forward and state their name, and then the staff will tell us what, if there are any issues and what's going on with the case. Then we'll have a presentation. So if the case at 40 Northwest 12th Street would come forth, please.
Hi, Steve Boyd with Oklahoma Contemporary. We have the Orly Ginger rope sculpture at 11th and Broadway at Campbell Park. It's been up for a year, and we have an agreement with the artist to keep it up through some of this year, and we'd like to extend the sculpture.
Laura?
Staff agrees with allowing it to continue. This was the first one of these we had, and I think they've indicated it was very successful, so I think we'll see some more.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, when is the big building, the real building, the long-term building going to start? Any idea at all?
When we hit 80% of our capital campaign. We don't know exactly yet.
You're getting there, though.
We're getting close.
Yeah, that's going to be phenomenal.
Thanks, Rick.
So you're talking about like the boxcar deal that you have there? Is that
The what now?
the structure that you're talking about here?
It's the rope sculpture that's in the park in front.
Sorry.
Yeah,
This
that's
is just the
kind
installation.
of interesting. And you want us to, you want to keep it for a while?
We want to keep it for a while, yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about.
Not yet, no.
Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak for or against this project?
Move to approve, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
Provision that thing will leave by December 31st. That's what you were saying.
I have a motion and a motion from Tannenbaum, a second from Scothorn. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6B is 17 South Dewey Avenue. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Bobby Newman. I'm with 3 Level Design Architects. Our address is 10400 Greenbrier Place in Oklahoma City. The project that we have here is the Better Business Bureau building. As you can see, the outside of the building was relatively rough. We were doing an interior remodel, and as part of that, the owner wanted to freshen up the outside and create a cohesive facade that was representative of the quality of the construction that we were doing on the interior. The existing building is all brick on the exterior walls. 3 facades have had plaster put on them. The 2 primary facades on the 2 street sides is the oldest plaster from observation, just looking at the condition that's in, somewhat haphazardly applied. The alley side also has plaster, which is actually in very good condition. It seems to be the plaster that was put on the most recently. The last side, the 3rd side, is actually the parking lot side of the building that does not face the main 2 facades. During construction, we came across a technical issue in terms of applying plaster over the brick that is existing on the parking lot facade. The other 3 facades that had already had plaster on them were in good enough condition that the plastering contractor felt comfortable applying 3/4-inch cement plaster over those facades. However, on the parking lot facade, which had been, brick had been painted numerous times and had some repairs done to it, they have determined that since the 3/4-inch lath and plaster has to be mechanically attached, that means basically that they have to drive nails into the joints of the masonry and the brick, that the brick on the outside face has deteriorated such that it will not accept the mechanical fasteners that they need to use to attach the 3/4-inch plaster. We looked at several different options on that, had a couple of site meetings on that, at which point in time the plastering contractor essentially told us that they would not install a 3/4-inch cement plaster over that facade because they could not warranty it, and then secondly, because of the extreme weight of the material, they felt that it could potentially be a life safety issue if some of the plaster came loose because of the failure of the attachment, mechanical attachment, and that it could potentially fall on someone or a car. What they have proposed that we do in lieu of the 3/4-inch plaster is to use a synthetic stucco and EIFS system, essentially, on that facade. And the reason why is they feel that they can clean that facade up, power wash it, remove any of the loose material, and then essentially glue that assembly to the brick facade. That assembly, which is the upper assembly that I've got a sample of here, is considerably lighter. The sample is about 3 pounds. The lower one, which unfortunately I carried from the parking lot, is about 45 pounds. So that they feel that they're going to be able to attach this and get much better performance, and that there's not going to be a significant difference in the actual appearance. The 2 materials will never touch each other. At the corners, there are brick pilasters that would separate the 2 materials by several feet. Both materials would receive the same finish. The synthetic plaster will probably have a slightly flatter surface due to the fact that they trowel, they rasp that. If you can see any differences between the 2 materials, I think it's probably going to be in the fact that one's a little bit flatter than the other. The joints in the 2 materials will try to match as closely as possible. I don't think that on typical observation most people are going to notice the difference between the 2 materials at all.
The only thing I would add is when you look at the proposed elevations, you can see the detailing that they're going to add at the corners, which aren't there now. When you look at the upper left picture, that's the street side. That will actually have the bottom really heavy application put on it. Then there'll be brick at the corner. This is the parking lot side, which will be the lighter, as he said, flatter. I don't think you won't actually have it next to the other application. So I think when you're there looking at it, it's going to look the same. It is separated from the vehicles by a continuous curb, so I think it'll be protected. Because I think one of the other concerns for the lighter material is it's not as durable, like if you would hit it. but the vehicles in the parking lot are separated from it by, there's a sidewalk and a raised curb. The alley facade, which is the north facade that you don't see here, that will actually have the heavier application put on it, so it's just the parking lot side, and staff felt comfortable with it. In our staff report, we recommended, we don't think that you're going to see that much of a difference. It's not on the street sides.
From the owner's standpoint, what we'd really like to do here is, quite frankly, this is going to be an additional cost to do this work, most of that associated with the preparation work that the plastering contractor is going to have to do. I believe it's about a $10,000 ad. But they would like to, if possible, come to a compromise in the situation so that we can maintain a cohesive look on all 4 elevations of the building, and try to honor the original design that we came up to and acknowledge the existing conditions that we're having to deal with.
Any comments or questions from the committee?
The only thing I know about EFS is that it can be damaged with a string trimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And your landscape plan doesn't show anything on that side of the building. So is it planned on being turf, or is it planned on being shrubbery, or?
Originally, we would plan on doing it in turf. That is a good question. We can add some additional reinforcing to the bottom course of that to help prevent that. However, that is a maintenance thing that I certainly would acknowledge. We would be open to doing something to accommodate that if we need be.
Yeah, I think either, I know some people will just fill that area in with gravel, which is moderately attractive, but other people would plant shrubbery rather than allow equipment to bang up against it.
Right, and typically in our designs, we don't usually close the ground. However, again, this is kind of a unique situation where, quite frankly, caught us off guard. The other thing that we could potentially do is pour a small curb along there where, that you would not necessarily need to get landscaping equipment along there. I feel like my client would be open to any of those options, and quite frankly, the landscaping, I feel like they would be open to also. So if we could come to a compromise in terms of conditional approval, but we would certainly be willing to entertain that, whatever we needed to do.
Okay. Any other comments? What, Connie, you look like you want to, will you turn on your?
I could try to do a motion. I'm not very good at this when they have, but I think I would be in favor of approving the material if they address the base, either with a curb or with landscaping, so that it can't be damaged ultimately.
Okay, Laura, do you have anything else that you want to say about this?
No.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, is that an appropriate motion? Okay. We have a motion by Connie, a second by Chuck. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations. I do think it'll be an improvement. Okay. The next item is 913 West Main. Is the applicant present? Yes. Are you going to actually present, Mike? Do you have any better, Paula, do we have any better drawings of this? I got a copy that looks a lot like that, just a little hard to read.
I brought my copy, which is a better drawing. I'll be
Okay,
happy to share
good.
it.
If we could pass that around.
Okay.
So the issue with this before was that I think we felt like it was too large a sign, is that right?
On Building A,
Uh-huh.
we discussed the sign was too large and maybe too high up on the building, and it was suggested that we make it into a blade sign and lower it And that is what we propose to do. Building A on Main Street.
This one is from CA, so you don't have that, that's darker.
Correct. Yeah. I have the original from the original CA, which noted the original problem.
I think that would be helpful, actually.
This is a darker copy.
Right, it was one larger attached wall, vertical wall sign,
Up on the stairwell, right?
and now it's proposed to be a smaller blade sign in about the same location, just smaller and lower, and a different type.
Okay. So I'm going to pass this way. Laura, do you want to address this real quick? Or Lisa?
Yeah, that was the...
That was the entire...
That was the, yes,
Okay.
it was, all the other items on this application were approved last time. The committee asked that the applicant study a different size and location and type of the sign. So they're proposing a smaller blade sign. And so that's why it's highlighted on your packet with, to point out just exactly which sign needs action in this vote.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions from the committee? Anyone in the gallery that would like to address this? Okay. That was a...
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Ainsworth, a second by Gigi. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Are you for this? Since you've made, okay. Your application has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You have item 6D, 700 Northwest 7th Street. Is the applicant present?
Kathy Potts, Reese Associates.
I'm Dennis Matheny with Reese Associates.
Very good. Laura?
This is a request. They have a project doing some major interior renovations as well as exterior renovations. And one thing that I want to point out before I forget, because we had a discussion and I discussed this with them, the staff report references the fence around the oxygen tank as being 6 foot tall. That was part of the discussion I had with someone involved, not the people standing before you on this project. And I need to correct that their intent is only for a 4 foot tall decorative metal fence. And so you're going to hear me say that when I talk about those items. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
The project itself is one that's involving some architectural material actually put on part of the exterior, some painting. They're removing both the canopies, both front and back, doing additions on both of those facades. And let me get to the drawing, sorry. And as you can see, the elevation, we have here on the site plan. We have the addition that's on the north and the addition that's on the south. The oxygen tank that's also in the proposal is located up in this area. They own the entire block, but there is still an alley that goes through the middle of it. So they acquired the lot on the corner subsequent to the other buildings, so they do own the entire lot right now. And we did discuss that relative to some of the proposal. You have renderings showing the new look, that it will look totally different than that is there now. They have the metal panels that they're proposing, the signage, which is the V that's going up. They're also, in here, you'll see where they're painting some of the ephes that's there, and they're going to paint that, so it will look different, give it an all-new face. And this is the other elevation, which is the one that faces to the south right now, the alley that runs right here in front of it. You will notice in the staff report that we reference other. One of the things that came up during this project, which is not being considered today, and that is because of some issues involving some other departments as well as us, deals with the curb cuts that they're proposing on the north. There's different parts of the regulations that talk about maximum number, minimum separation from the adjacent street, maximum width, that type of thing, and those issues are being resolved. They probably have started coming together in the last week, but that is an item that's not before you today, and which could potentially be approved administratively at a later date, once all the city departments agree on what the solution is going to be for this project. We do have several things pointed out. One deals with the screening of the oxygen tank. It was indicated to us the location was chosen because of how they have to fill it up. They have to use a semi-truck to fill it up. And so they are currently working on the information with traffic about how they're going to have a parking area for that semi so that they can fill it up. And so they're proposing that to be, let me get to, I pointed that out on the site plan up by the street on the north, so it's easy access. The current proposal is for a decorative metal fence with landscaping. Whoops, how did I get that there? Which this drawing obviously doesn't show the landscaping around it, but it shows the fence. We were trying to find another one somewhere else so that we could actually see what they look like, and I guess they're hidden because I'm assuming other medical facilities have tanks like this, but we were unable to find one unless one of you might know what one looks like.
They're usually pretty large.
Right.
This may be a little bit.
So it's in this location right here. And this is the plan that came from their landscaper that showed a staggered dual row of evergreens. As we indicate in the staff report, this option does not provide the solid screening that the regulations require, so they would need a variance from that. It's kind of an odd situation because their original proposal was to have metal that they were using on the building, but that's not allowed either. You can't do solid screening in the front yard like that. It's because of the location, so the option would be do that and get a variance, or do this other and also get a variance. So I guess it's a matter of, what it will look like. The evergreens will grow up and it'll be more green than the hard material. But that was the discussion that we had had with them during the review process. And that is discussed in here for you all. That's for your consideration, but it will need a variance recommendation from you because they will have to get a variance for that. Because landscaping doesn't provide the solid screening that's the code calls for.
So just to confirm, is the intention to have a 4-foot fence or a 6-foot fence?
4-foot fence. That was their request. And the reasoning is because the code requires, when you go higher than 4 feet, you have to have a minimum 6-inch separation between your pickets.
Oh.
When it's lower than that, you only have to have, I believe it's a 2.5-inch separation between your pickets, so they're much closer together.
Okay. Is there Okay, so on the drawings, it says 6, because it was marked out.
Yes.
And is there a specific call-out? I'm just wondering if in our motion, we will need to allow for a 4-foot fence.
I think the way your motion is specifically talks about the variance needed as far as needing to clarify between the 4 and the 6.
So what?
I'm looking to Lisa to see if we need to, other than this in the presentation, we've clarified that it's a 4-foot fence and not a 6-foot.
Right.
A little over 6 feet. It's a horizontal tank. We did that so it didn't stick up quite so high. We're concerned with a metal panel. We need the wrought iron for ventilation around the oxygen tank so fumes can't build up. We'd like the narrower pickets so that a person's hand can't reach in there and tamper with the oxygen tank. So that's kind of what leads to all of this.
They can just put that in their motion as far as amended or as discussed.
Okay, thank you.
By staff.
The other thing I'll point out that we discussed in here dealt with the sign, and due to the topography of this, because the sign is up high, and typically we're looking at signs that are more pedestrian scale, but if you've been to the site, there's a clear grade difference, and staff feels it's totally appropriate where they're placing it, the size that they've got them, and everything like that. So, and that's just a guideline thing. We were just pointing that out to you. So just to clarify, when you do make the motion, just in your motion include, if you're supportive of what this is, that the fence around the oxygen tank would be 4 foot tall.
I'm not very familiar with this sort of thing, but are there any security issues relative to this oxygen tank? I mean, is it clearly a 4-foot fence is not going to keep anybody from getting in there? I mean, so are there any security concerns?
Just on the tank itself, there's safety valves that can only be accessed through the owner and then also the company that fills the tank when they pull in. Well, yeah, I am cool with the 4-foot fence. The screening around it is tall junipers, so they will eventually grow up to cover the rest of the tank that might poke up out above the 4-foot tank. So once they grow, it'll be totally screened, but we can still have the ventilation needed for the tank.
Well, your landscape plan requires them to be 10 foot when they're installed, which will screen them initially. And I have the same question about safety because it's so close to the street, and I'm sure there's regulations that you had to have followed, but I would be more concerned about a vehicle running into the tank, so tell me I'm wrong.
It's quite a ways off of the street. It's about 15 feet off the street now, just to the fence.
And we are required to have a minimum distance of 50 feet from an inpatient bed for an oxygen tank. So that's about as far away as we can get on this site. I do want to clarify that the hospital does not own that northwest piece of property. It's owned by an individual who has an association with the hospital, but the hospital themselves do not own that other piece of property. So we're on a very tight site.
Sorry.
What was the plan review, 8th floor was fine with the location of the tank?
Yes.
As far as we know.
Because they are currently reviewing that.
Okay, this may be a stupid Betsy comment, but on your elevations, the oxygen tank, I do appreciate the work that you're doing here, and I do think it's an improvement for the city and the neighborhood. But I am not seeing an elevation.
If you look at the north elevation, flat elevation, you'll see right there on the far right-hand side, it looks like a little almost, we were suggesting metal panels with a canopy, and you'll see that on the far right side. right there where that little pan hand is. And then we learned that metal panels wouldn't be approved in the front.
So
It's not
it
with
won't
the-
actually look like this.
Unless we can get a variance and do it that way and put metal panels there, but that's going to be a variance as well.
Will metal panels allow the ventilation that you say that you need?
Well, we
Not
don't,
as much.
not as much. We would feel more comfortable with it being wrought iron for the ventilation.
Were you looking for a sheet that showed the tank with the wrought iron around the fence?
I would like to see how it looks with the rest of the I mean,
Project?
just for aesthetically, we don't have a good view of what that's going to look like on that corner. And I would think it would... Huh? What,
If you look
Dennis?
a few pages back, there isn't a set of drawings for the tank enclosure.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't show, we're seeing a big, kind of a mass that complements the building. And in reality, it's going to be a 4-foot metal fence with a tank behind it and trees that need to be maintained. So that's a difference. And that's also going to impact the neighborhood.
But if I understand this correctly, the trees are going to effectively screen the things, so all you're going to see is
yeah.
screen the trees, right?
Yeah. Is that, is it easy to keep those alive when they're installed at 10 feet? Yeah, hail, whatever.
We wanted something that wasn't deciduous because we don't need the leaves dropping and being scattered around the O2 tank as well.
Sure.
So we chose junipers. Our landscapist chose junipers for that reason.
It just would be nice to kind of see how that looks. Can you bring that back?
Sure.
Just that part?
So you're wanting to see an elevation or rendering that actually shows the oxygen tank in front of the building to show how that would
as a
look
part
together?
of the overall aesthetic. Any other questions?
Well, I'll just comment that I think it's going to look so much nicer than it is now. I was really surprised when I drove by and went, oh, yay, we're going to do this.
I do have a question. There are high wires. Are those being buried or anything?
We've already contacted OG&E so that those will be buried when we get to the south side of the project. That's going to probably be another year or so. The north side needs to be built first so that we can do some relocation of departments within the hospital into the north entryway, so then we can do the south addition. And at that time, yes, we've already contacted OG&E and AT&T and Cox so that everything will get buried at that time.
Good. Anything else? Do we need, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this project? No? Okay. We have a motion?
I move to approve the application on the basis that it complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance, referenced in Section C of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant bring back to us the screening on the oxygen tank. And that's my first motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And did I also hear that, just to clarify, the fence height was 4 feet?
No, we're not approving the fence at this point.
Oh, you're not going to approve it at all? Okay.
It's conditioned upon bringing back that
gotcha.
part of the design. Okay.
I'd like to see it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that was a Gigi and Chuck motion. Next meeting?
Yes, next meeting?
If it's next meeting, then we actually need it next week,
Is that feasible?
like Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, we can get the elevation to you today or tomorrow. It's a delay in the project for patient care is all I'm concerned about for another month, if it has to wait until the next official committee review.
Well, we're approving the project with the exception of that screening.
Oh, okay,
The motion's
okay,
to approve the
okay.
project with the exception of the oxygen tank screening to be brought back at the January meeting.
Okay, yeah. That's great.
And I seconded that.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Lisa? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the overall project is approved with the exception of that, the screening around the oxygen tank.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we don't need to motion on the variance
Because it's not-
until we know until next time.
Okay, so we will make that motion next time. Okay, congratulations. Good job. We're really excited to see this happen.
We want to get it going too, so thank you.
Huge improvement. Thank you very much. Okay, the last item, and I know we're going to be, I was told to be out of here by 10. The next item is 6E, 100 West Reno. Is the applicant present? Are you the applicant, young lady?
Oh, no.
No, the applicant isn't here. I think we can go ahead and hear it.
I just can't necessarily speak for them or answer any questions you might have of them, but I would be glad to present this to you.
I am disoriented.
Oh, well, if you want to look, that's why I stopped right here. And I know this is a little confusing because this still shows I-40 running through here, but this is the south side of the arena.
Uh-huh.
And right now, this is where they have parking. If you ever drive by, that's where they have all that fenced parking. It's like temporary until they put the boulevard in.
Is that where
Okay.
where the highway used to be? Right there?
Right, and so the area that we're looking at is over in here, and I'm going to flip real quick. So right here is where I-40 used to go through, and right over here is the fence we're talking about, because it happens to already be there. And then here's another view looking from the other direction, so you can actually see it. I wanted to show you in this, it's kind of hard to see it back in there, because it's not right up on the road. However, it would be up on the boulevard once it goes in. It's wrought iron, and it has that metal screening. A picture of it was in your packet, and you can't really see the metal screening. It just adds kind of a shade to it a little bit.
Yeah.
I was advised that they needed to use that screening so nothing could be passed through the fence to people that have already gone through security, by people outside that have not gone through security. They're more concerned with the weapons issue, is what they indicated to me. This is for the smoking, for people to go outside and smoke once they've gone through security. And this is just, they have a similar fence that's continuing east from where they put the fence in, that toward the hotel, that looks similar to that. It kind of has a curved pickety thing on the top, and that one actually has that black fabric screen on the back of it, and you really can't see through that one at all. I kind of like the metal that they used on this one because you can still see through it. Let me get to it. This is a close picture of what the screen looks like, and it's just a metal piece.
Wow.
I know, and-
I didn't understand that when I was looking through the
Right,
packet.
but then when I go back to the actual picture, like this one here's up close, it just kind of looks like there's a subtle shading to it. Well, that's because it has that screen in it.
Well, that would definitely, and the height probably has to do with the,
7 foot, they didn't want
You
people
don't
to be
think
able
you
to
can throw a
reach. I mean,
gun
you can
over
throw
the-
things, but you can't really reach. So one of the clarifications I need to make to you, obviously, you're having to make a recommendation on a variance because this is considered a front yard because it's called a pass-through lot. It has a road on 3 sides of it. And so I confirmed with Development Services that they consider this, it has 2 fronts, Reno and the Boulevard side. So because of that, and it's 7 foot tall and not 6 foot tall, they're going to have to get a variance for that, so that's part of what you've got before you. The other thing we're going to need to include in the variance deals with the separation of the pickets that we talked about on the last project. Because this fence goes over 4 foot tall, the part of the fence that's over 4 foot tall is required to have a minimum separation of 6 inches between the pickets. Based on the detail, I didn't measure them out there, but based on the detail, this has a 4 inch instead of 6 inches. So we don't have maximum picket separation, we have minimum picket separation. So it can be consistent from the ground up, but it has to be at least 6 inches. So that also needs to be what they're going to need to get a variance from. It is already done.
Well, it's non-compliant because it doesn't have a CA.
Yes.
It doesn't meet the
It didn't have a
regulations.
permit, it didn't have a CA, so.
okay. Here's my concern about this project and its location, now that I know exactly where it is, because I was really confused about where it was located. This will be the front door. This will be on the boulevard. And it will, I mean, it's going to be visible on the boulevard.
We discussed that when they came in, and at that point, we were looking at if it could be administratively approved. It was before it was installed, actually. And we were discussing things, and I expressed the concern when the boulevard went in, and it was indicated to me that they would make them move it when the boulevard went in.
Can we make our any approval based on it being a limited
Relocated?
lifetime? I mean, we've done that before. Right,
Oh,
exactly.
re-reviewed, okay. So I
And
would
I don't
think
know-
so, I don't, yeah.
Sorry, I'm nodding to them.
Yeah, I would think so,
We can
that's
give it
probably a better
specific time.
scenario.
I would maybe give it a specific time limit, not just say when the boulevard goes in.
Okay, well,
Maybe 3 years. That's just a guess.
But I mean, is that like a safety issue? It's a requirement to have meshes there. Sorry. The mesh is there for safety and public safety issues?
So items cannot be passed from people on the outside that have not gone through screening to people on the inside, and it was indicated it's a weapons concern that they've got.
so that may be a safety issue, but I think the entire fence is an issue as far as appearance is concerned. It's not necessarily the mesh, because, I mean, as Laura's been able to show us, that doesn't really change the appearance of that fence. It's the idea that there's a 7-foot fence in the front of the building as people are coming, you know, down a pretty major appearance street in Oklahoma City coming from either direction, but mostly coming from the east.
I have a question. Is it imperative to have a smoking area for that building?
Don't know. We actually did talk about that because there's a new proposal about smoking in parks and public areas, but for design review, we're not assessing what they do inside of there. We're just assessing if the fence meets the regulations and guidelines of our ordinance.
I can't see how, if there are really security concerns, I can't see how a 7-foot fence would even begin to address that. It's open on the top.
I was just passing along the discussion that we had had.
It's frightening.
I was surprised, though. I thought that screening on the inside would make it darker than it is, and I was real concerned because I think it showed that it was 57% cut, screen it down, and then I looked at it, and it's like, I couldn't really tell when I was out there, and you could still see through it. And I think that's part of the concern with fencing and things in the front, is you want everything to be open.
I don't care for the location. I don't know really what would be better, but on the building.
Well, there's, the hotels on the east side, and there's a service drive that runs up. And now, obviously, I don't know what goes on in that area, but that's really the only place to tuck it in out of the way. But I don't know how practical that is because of what happens in the building.
I absolutely don't have any problem with it right now because it's not an appearance issue right now, but it very well could be. And I would say 2017, I mean, that's, at the end of 2017, that's 2 years.
December 2017? I mean, we can...
December 31st, 2017.
Or if you want it, because we can put it in the system to revisit it.
Yeah, if it's still a construction area, but I think it very well may be moving along fast enough that 2 years from now, that will be, and most of us won't be on the...
Right. I mean, they will still need a variance, which will be good for this location.
Okay.
So obviously, if they ever move it, it'll be back before you.
Can we make our variance subject to that same length of time?
Recommend it.
That's what I think.
Recommend it, but the board would be the one that would do that.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? Have we talked about this enough? Gigi can do anything.
Okay, I move that we approve the application on the basis that it complies with the regulations and guidelines of Downtown Design District as referenced in Section C of the staff report, with the condition that the approval is only until December 31st, 2017, and that we recommend, well, that's the first motion.
Okay. That was Gigi and Chuck. All in favor? Wait.
Aye.
I'm sorry, you'll need, one of the conditions needs to be that they receive the variance.
Oh, with the condition that they receive the variance.
For the height and
for the
picket
maximum height in the front yard.
and picket spacing.
And the width of the picket spacing.
You want to re-second that?
Second, resecond.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then your...
Second motion, I move that we provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance with the maximum height of fences and picket spacing in the front yard only until December 31st, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Paula, once again, that was a Gigi and Chuck motion. And that is all of the cases for individual consideration. We have any big deals in the administrative approvals? No?
I have a Some of the items, you're going to see the same number under administrative approvals as what's on your agenda. For example, the big UMB sign, they had submitted a total of 5 signs. 4 of them were small that I could approve.
Right.
So they have the same number, so that there might be some confusion there. And so the big one had to come to you because it was over 100 square feet. The other 2, because they're doing a whole new replace sign, rebranding thing. So there was also a demolition for one of the canopies at Valier. And so that came in with a different number, but you might see, wait a minute, that's the same address, what's going on? So if there's some confusion, that a lot of times if there's pieces of it that we can take care of, we do that, and then the big ones come to you.
We appreciate that efficiency.
No problem.
I do have a question on number 16. the application for demolition of a fourplex at 712 Northwest 6th.
Yes, just across the street from Valier.
Right. And why is that administratively approved? Yeah, just curious.
That building was part of one of the intensive level surveys, but it was found in the intensive level survey that it had no historical significance anymore. Apparently, at one point, part of the building fell down, and it was repaired with different block. And to me, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was probably really cool looking, because it had a texture to the block, but then they repaired it with flat. So in the intensive level survey, they determined, our experts that did that for it, determined that there was no historical significance individually or as a district for that building. So because of that, and because of the size of the building, I was able to approve it. Now, the new demo ordinance is effective on any application we received after the ordinance went into effect, which was 30 days after the council voted on it. Okay? So you're actually going to see on your next agenda a total of 3 demolitions, 1 that was submitted before it went into effect, and 2 that came in after it went into effect. So but at that point, from then on, everything that comes in that is found to be in the intensive level survey will come before you, and that ordinance is applicable to it.
And just to clarify, that's how we've been practicing it. If right in the former ordinance that you know and love, historic significance was the only criteria to be evaluated. So if a property showed up on the intensive level survey as contributing or as historic, we always brought it to committee regardless of the size. So this one wasn't on the survey, so we didn't bring it because it was clearly had lost integrity.
Right.
But to Laura's point, on the new ordinance, since there are multiple criteria, unless it's absolutely cut and dry, which, as you know, demolitions seldom are. Unless it's absolutely cut and dried, we're going to take them to committee, almost regardless of size. Okay. So,
Okay, that answers my
that answer
question.
your
And I looked at this building, and I can see why it would not have been on
Yeah, and then
survey.
they blocked up the entrance, and I mean, it was...
And the size, but just as opposed to the application for the other fourplex that we visited that day, that fateful day when the cat...
That was found to be individually eligible.
It was individually eligible because of its design.
Right. The other one that's coming, the other
That
two
will
that are coming
again
before
come
you,
before us.
one of them is a district. So we're actually going to be looking at them different ways,
Right.
which is probably helpful with the new ordinance, so that we can, really evaluate that ordinance.
So that was a question. So we'll see, we're going to see 3.
Well, 3 demos. You're going to have more
Right.
than that. We have a meeting. Yeah.
But we're going to see 3 demos, but one of them will be looking at from our old standpoint.
And it came to you
Is that
because
right?
it's 32,000 square feet. It's the size. Yeah. And it came in before the ordinance was effective.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the planning staff?
Are there officer elections in January?
Yeah. Everybody have a wonderful holiday. And if no one else has any comments, we are adjourned. Yeah.